Maybe you've heard some scary stories, maybe you've seen some news stories, and you want to know what is postpartum depression, how is it different from baby blues, what are the signs, the symptoms, how do I know if I have it, how long does it last, and can I stay away from it? Is there something I can do to prevent it from happening to me? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. I work with moms during the postpartum season, and the two most common questions I get are about milk supply and postpartum depression. I truly believe that if we're going to have a healthy society, we need healthy families. And at the heart of a healthy family is a mommy who is confident. And that's why I do what I do, to give you the tools you need so that you can enjoy the first year and enter your motherhood with confidence. Now, there are a lot of postpartum and peripartum mood disorders. There's postpartum rage, postpartum anxiety, postpartum OCD, postpartum psychosis. This video is about postpartum depression. We will get into the other peripartum, postpartum mood disorders in a different video. Postpartum and peripartum, what does this mean? Postpartum means after birth. Peripartum means during pregnancy and after birth, because initially, it was thought that these mood disorders show up after a baby's born, but we are finding that sometimes it shows up during pregnancy, and that's why they've changed the term to be peripartum, because it can show up during pregnancy, right after birth, or up to a year or 4 years after birth. What is the difference between baby blues and postpartum depression? Because it is said that 80% of women experience baby blues after birth. I have worked with a lot of moms. I honestly have yet to meet a mom who hasn't experienced these baby blues symptoms. So what is happening? After you give birth, your hormones, your progesterone, your estrogen, they've been on a great cruise all the way up during pregnancy. You're feeling good, you're feeling strong. And then the minute the placenta leaves your body, it crashes. You get to the level of a menopausal woman, where your estrogen, your progesterone has just shot straight down. Your cortisol levels, which is like the stress hormone, is rising. So this leads to us feeling weepy, crying for what we think is no reason, where we're just totally fine, and then suddenly we're sobbing, and then we're okay again, and you kind of feel out of sorts. This is about hormones. And your hormones start to rise back up again 2 weeks after birth. And that's when a lot of moms say, oh, okay, I feel like myself again. The baby blues that we're talking about, it's a period of 2 weeks after birth where you're just crying a lot, or you're feeling kind of low, but you bounce back up, but you go back low again, and then you bounce back up again. And it's just kind of like a seesaw of emotion. And you're not sure what is happening. This is the baby blues. A lot of us will feel this, and you have the guilt that comes with it, right? Because you've had your baby and now you're crying all the time. You don't know why. You can't just be happy because your baby's here. Anyway, this all plays part of it, right? But then there's depression. Depression is very different from baby blues. One key aspect in separating depression from baby blues, a lot of people will say it's time, but the biggest key aspect of it is the lack of joy. That you are not bouncing back up and feeling great again. You are just kind of either apathetic, where you don't really feel so excited about things, you're not really that happy about things, and you're feeling kind of low energy, low motivation. Sometimes you're crying a lot, sometimes you're not crying at all. Sometimes you're laughing, and then you're really feeling hollow. So depression can look like all sorts of things, but the biggest key in it is the lack of joy. Now, in films, on TV, in medication commercials, we always see depression depicted in one way, which is like this. But that's not what depression looks like for everybody. Sometimes you are hyper productive. You are doing so much. You are getting things done. You are moving. People wouldn't be able to pick up on it. They think you're doing great. With depression, you tend to not engage very much, and you tend to not take care of yourself very much. And a lot of this gets, completely missed, because with mothers, we're often consumed with the needs of our babies. So our needs come last. So a lot of these signs and symptoms, they completely go under the radar because this is the life of caring for another human being 24/7. You are not taking care of yourself a lot of the time. You are isolated, you are fatigued, you are tired, you lack motivation, you don't really want to go out and do anything. And a lot of people will say, well, it's just because you're tired, you know, you haven't been sleeping much. What are you eating? Oh, not very much. That's because you're busy. You're taking care of a baby. So a lot of this tends to just not be noticed. And then it can get really bad, which a lot of these news stories are covering. And I'm so glad that this conversation is being talked about more, because one of the leading causes of death for mothers the first year after birth is suicide. That's one of the leading causes. I didn't even know that until I got into a course on maternal mental health. And I was like, why have I never heard that statistic? Like, I have never heard that this is a leading cause of death for us in the first year in the Western world. I'll put that caveat there. What causes postpartum depression? There are a number of factors at play. We're going to go through a few of them. Number one, you've had a major life event. Birth is a huge life event, and any big event that happens has emotional repercussions. So these big life events, they affect us emotionally. You've gone through something huge. This has an effect. Number two, your whole identity has kind of shifted to where it was just you before, or you just had one kid before, or you had two, because with each baby, you're learning something new. You're becoming a different person. There's a new part of you being born at the same time that this human is being born. So you are going through a major identity shift, no matter how many kids you have. Then you have predispositions. You have previously had depression or anxiety. That predisposes you to having postpartum depression. If you had a stressful pregnancy, if you had birth trauma, if your baby had birth trauma, all of this can affect it. If you have had any other kind of previous trauma, sexual trauma, abuse of any kind, birth can sometimes bring these memories and these feelings back up. If you have financial stress, if you have lack of support, if you had IVF, and they're also finding that women who receive Pitocin before birth, which is a synthetic oxytocin, which, you often get to kickstart labor, they have a higher rate of postpartum depression. So if any of these factors are at play in your life, this predisposes you to experiencing postpartum depression. You also have had a major hormonal shift. After birth, your hormones, like we talked about, they just shoot down. And this recalibrating of hormones, often we feel that lift after 2 weeks, but it can take a year, 2 years, 4 years for you to feel like yourself again, for you to emotionally feel like you are balanced. This has to do with one, depletion, and two, our hormonal shift. You have genetics at play. You have inflammation at play. You also have sleep. We adults, we have a sleep cycle called the circadian rhythm, which means that our body moves in a rhythm, in a circle of sleep pattern. And when we sleep really well, our prefrontal cortex, which is like the CEO, the decision maker, the executive of our brain and of our reactions, it has a really smooth communication line to the amygdala, which is kind of like tucked in at the bottom. And the amygdala, it does a lot of things, but what I want to talk about is one primary job it does, which is it manages the fear, motivation, emotional response. So when we sleep really well, that response and connection is smooth. When our sleep is disrupted, which when a baby is born, they don't have an established circadian rhythm. And oftentimes they are more awake at night and they don't have like a pattern of sleep yet. So this leads us to having very disrupted and broken sleep, which affects that relationship between the prefrontal cortex, which is the decision maker, and our fear, emotional, motivational responses. When our sleep is broken, it becomes almost this like hyperactive response that happens with the amygdala. I imagine it as someone getting constantly zapped. So this fear response is so heightened. which leads to more stress in your body. So just the fact of getting this broken sleep and getting less sleep, your brain connections are being affected. There is a lot going on in your body right now. And I hope this list of like what causes it is not discouraging to you, but instead it's showing you all the things at play. So if you are struggling with postpartum depression, you're not a bad mom. You're not a bad mom. It has nothing to do with the quality of a person that you are. Look at all of these factors at play. Look at everything that's happening within your body. Just understanding what was happening in my body helped me give myself a little bit more grace when I was going through it. Because it's like, okay. And it's hard to do because we have a lot of guilt when we have depression. So understanding what was going on, it helped me just give myself a little bit more grace. And I hope it does the same for you. That you know that this list isn't even comprehensive, right? This is just a few things that I want to talk to you about. But look at it. It's a pretty intense list of things. And I don't know anybody who can't say like, yeah, I've got that one or that one or that one. Like we all have at least a little bit of this list in us. And if you are having all of it, it's completely understandable what you're going through and how you're feeling. And it does not mean you're a bad mom. You are a good mom. What does postpartum depression sound like? You might hear, I don't think my baby likes me. I can't sleep. This is a big one. Even if you are given the time and the space and someone takes the baby and they're just like, you go rest. You can't fall asleep. This is something to be looking at. I don't really care. That's fine. Sure. Whatever. What if I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this well. I'm such a bad mom. If you hear any of this in your head, if you hear any of these phrases coming out of someone you love's mouth, you talk to them, you ask them straight up, how are you feeling? What is going on in your head? Can you tell me what you think about when you're having a hard time? And just get them to start opening up a little bit more. And if this is you watching this, you need to go talk to somebody. Because don't do what I did. I kept it inside. And then I suffered for like over a year and a half. You see these news stories and the families are just shocked because they thought their person was okay. Because we're really good at hiding stuff. Anyway, go talk to somebody. How long does postpartum depression last? It is typical for these feelings and symptoms to last up to a year, but it can last as long as we don't act on it and seek help. And sometimes postpartum depression isn't showing up until 4 years after birth. And sometimes postpartum depression is showing up in our partners, not the birthing person, but it's showing up in our partners because they're also going through all of this that we're going through, minus the hormones affected by birth. So what do I do about it? For prevention, right? Knowledge is power. So just understanding what's happening, that is going to set you up for success. If you know that you have certain predispositions for postpartum depression, then set up a game plan. Even if you think you don't have any, set up a game plan. Talk to your doctor, talk with your partner about what we can do to set you up for success so that these signs and these symptoms can be recognized really quickly if you do start to develop postpartum depression, and that you have healthy patterns in place to help push you towards health. What I did the first time was nothing. I just kept quiet, and it was the worst. Nutrition is a huge one because we tend to just kind of like skirt around it and go for take a bath, go for a walk. Yeah, these things are important. But the way you eat matters. What we eat, it affects every single bit of us. So if we can have beautiful, colorful, nutrient-dense meals, this is a great starting place. Have somebody make you good food, really good food, good for you, delicious to eat, comforting, easy to digest. Number 2, social gatherings. Get those friends who don't drain you, but they fill you up to just go for a walk with you. Then you're getting outside and you're having social engagement. These little things, they can be really powerful. So talking with somebody, going outside with a friend for a walk, eating really well. Depression is not your fault. Just like we talked about, there's genetics at play. There is past trauma at play. There is inflammation at play. There's so much going on. It is not your fault. You are not weak. You are not a bad mother. You are a good mother. You are strong. I've linked below the Edinburgh Depression screening protocol, which I think would be awesome if every pediatrician, because we don't really see doctors after we give birth, but every pediatrician did this screening for parents when they came in. That'd be beautiful. Anyway, I put it below. It's in English, it's in Spanish. And it is, just go through it, answer it honestly, see what you scale on it, and talk about it. I'm working on creating a project that is so near and dear to my heart, which is the ultimate 90-day guidebook for mothers after birth. And you want to be notified when this comes out, will you just sign up below? I've got the wait list there. The first 10 people are going to get the first 2 weeks for free, where everything's in one spot and you feel more confident with every page that you turn. So if you want to be part of this, sign up below. I'll let you know as soon as it's available. And I love you. And I see you, pizza. And I hope this helped.